Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1580B, and today's date is May 30th, 2018, and the title of the episode is IG's Report to be Reviewed. The Plan Moves Forward. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, just today, Trump was out there with another tweet storm, and he pretty much said that he wished he didn't pick Sessions as Attorney General. The president had asked Sessions to reverse his decision to recuse himself from overseeing the Russian investigation. So he wanted him to reverse his decision. And this brings us back to a Q post, which is very interesting, because this is a Q post that was made on May 21st, and basically it says Rod Rosenstein recused fired, who has direct oversight over Mueller. Sessions unrecuse or number 3 until refill. Who's number 3? Rachel Brand, and she was let go. Of course, the corporate media is saying that she decided to leave to take another job. So right now, I think what Trump is doing, he's giving the A-OK for Sessions to unrecuse himself until the number 3 position is going to be filled. Now, I think this is the beginning stages of it, and I think this is where this most likely is headed. Remember, throughout all these posts, it's saying trust Sessions, trust, and he went on through the whole list. Q went on through the whole list and told us who to trust and who not to trust. And now we see that the Inspector General's report is coming out. Chairman Chuck Grassley of the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to hold hearings entitled Examining the Inspector General's First Report, and this is decisions regarding the 2016 presidential election, and this is supposed to be happening on Tuesday, June 5th at 10 a.m. Now, we understand there's a lot more in this report, and Phase 1 of the Inspector General's report should be released within days, maybe Friday or Monday. That's probably the time frame. So we know the deep state, whenever news comes out, they push some type of an event. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but they might do it. So we might be on the lookout for this Friday or maybe Monday, depending on when they get word this is coming out. Last time they had an event, they were completely off, and they had the event. This time, they're going to make sure that they have the information to have this event to distract from what is about to happen. Now, the Inspector General already had the information and evidence. It's the manner of dissemination and disclosure that is being revealed right now. And, of course, it's going to be on McCabe. It's going to be the McCabe report. Phase 1 is going to be the Clinton email investigation and certain election events. Phase 2 is going to be Carter Page FISA application, includes Stefan Halper's actions. Phase 3 is Russia-Trump investigation and the Russian narrative. Segments and findings will bleed from one phase to the other, but this provides a simple framework of the Inspector General's approach. It's equally possible that Phase 2 and 3 are blended into one final Inspector General's report. Recall the IG report on Andrew McCabe. The report was very thorough and even provided us breadcrumbs regarding Loretta Lynch's interference in the EDNY and in New York's FBI's investigation into the Wiener laptop Clinton investigation. But the Inspector General stopped short of covering all of McCabe's violations. Horowitz, McCabe report, stated up front exactly what he was addressing. So what is he addressing? Well, the report addresses the accuracy of statements made by then Federal Bureau of Investigation Deputy Director Andrew McCabe to the FBI's Inspector Division and the Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General concerning the disclosure of certain law enforcement sensitive information to reporter Devlin Barrett that was published online in the Wall Street Journal on October 30, 2016. In addition to addressing whether McCabe lacked candor, the OIG's misconduct investigation addressed whether any FBI or Department of Justice policies were violated in disclosing non-public FBI information. McCabe will likely be featured prominently along with Comey in the pending Inspector General's report, and then he'll most likely move into other phases. And again, we can expect this to be coming out most likely Friday or Monday, and the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to receive this on the 5th. So again, expect something to happen. Doesn't mean it will, but every time something like this is released and they know it's coming out, they create some type of an event so they can have a distraction. We see George Soros is out there once again, and he is pushing centralization, blending the countries together. And we talked about this yesterday in the report about this is what they've been trying to do. And remember, the deep state, they haven't stopped. They just didn't disappear. They're still here. They're still pushing their agenda. They're still trying to reach their goal. And Soros is out there saying that the EU should take on debt in order to help improve economic conditions in Africa as part of its response to the ongoing refugee crisis. And he was giving a speech at the European Council of Foreign Relations. This is their annual meeting. And he says that the European Union should keep their borders completely open and let all the refugees move wherever they want to go. And he says the EU should be taking out more debt to make this possible. He even pitched the idea of an EU-led Marshall Plan for Africa that would require at least 30 billion euros annually for a number of years to help deal with the refugee crisis. And of course, where is all this money going to come from? Well, they're going to have to borrow it. He says that the EU has a high credit rating and its borrowing capacity is largely unused. And he went on to say, when else should we do this? We should do this now because there's a crisis right in front of us and it's time to do it. And he's saying that this is how we're going to save Europe. And the European countries are saying, we don't want this. This is something we don't want. This is what the deep state, the central banks, this is what they want. They want everything blended. Remember, their idea is to have every single country on an even playing field. This way, it makes no difference where you are. This way, they can control everything, all at the same time. This is their plan from the beginning. There'd be no competition. There'd be nothing. They would just have everyone working at a very low wage, all enslaved to them. We see that Trump has officially nominated a new commander for the Afghan war, and we see that this is Lieutenant General Austin Scott Miller, and now he's taking control of the situation there. General John Nicholson, has been there since March 2016, and he said what is happening in Afghanistan is a complete and utter stalemate. We can't make any headway, and I think this is why Trump right now is changing things up in Afghanistan, because I do believe the agenda is to shut everything down, really go after the Islamic State, get to the deep state, flush them out, and remove the troops from these areas. Remember, what we're seeing out in the Middle East, what we're seeing in Afghanistan, this was all part of the deep state plan. This was their plan. They orchestrated it. They put everything into motion, and now it has to be undone. And this has been going on for years and years and years. And this is why it's taking some time to basically counter everything that has been done over the many, many years. We see that the North Korean summit that is proceeding right now, and we see already the deep state is putting out warnings saying that North Korea is getting ready to cyber attack. So we got to make sure that the financial institutions are secure, because that's where they're going to hit. We also have this alert from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security saying that there's some type of malware attack on routers and you need to reboot. I would say that they're most likely behind this, and they're trying to get everyone to reboot, or they're cleaning up their operation, or they're implanting more malware into the router somehow, some way. But for them to come out with a message, I don't think it means what everyone thinks it means. Because when has the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI been on the up and up? They haven't. Remember, they came out a couple days later blaming North Korea and Russia and the rest for all these different attacks. I mean, for North Korea, they blamed WannaCry on North Korea. They blamed the Sony hack on North Korea, and they did this in a matter of days. They knew exactly who it was. And of course, whenever they do this, it's a complete and utter setup. I mean, think about it. You get spam all the time. Nobody can stop the spam. That continues. They can't find those people, but they know exactly who the state actors are. I mean, really think about it. It's mostly completely impossible to figure out where these attacks are really coming from. And we know from Vault 7 and everything else that the CIA has the ability to replicate all of these attacks. And of course, all they need to do is feed us propaganda, and who's going to check? Nobody. We see Lebanon right now is launching a search for their forced oil and gas reserves. And of course, Israel is out there threatening Lebanon. Now, this is what's going to happen in the Middle East here. Since all these countries are taking back control of their countries, and now they're getting ready to basically move forward with their economic agendas. They're going to be looking for gas and oil to help their own country. Other countries are not going to like this because that means they're losing control. And we know there's disputed areas in Lebanon and Israel out in the waterway. And Lebanon right now has teamed up with France, has teamed up with Italy and Russia, where they're all working together looking for all of this oil and gas. And I believe there's a lot out there. And we might see some type of crisis in this area. We see Iran right now is backing European nations for the push for a Yemen ceasefire. And France, Germany, Britain, and other European nations are with Iran right now, saying that we need to have a ceasefire deal in Yemen. We need to shut this down, and we need to allow humanitarian aid to flow into Yemen. And you need to remember the deep state, they've been pushing their agenda in all of these countries. They had a plan, and their plan is basically out the window right now because everything that they've tried to do is now being countered. There's pushback, just like with North Korea. We see Iran is also asking OPEC for some help. And they're citing Article 2 of the OPEC statute, which emphasizes safeguarding the interest of member countries individually and collectively. And why are they doing this? Because of all the sanctions that the U.S. Treasury is putting on Iran. Because there's pressure on Iran right now because the deep state is in there. And right now we know there's a lot of slush money moving through Iran, keeping this deal operational. This is why we had these pallets of cash going over to Iran. And there's a lot more cash that we don't even know about, which is feeding the monster, the enemy, the deep state. And right now, Iran is looking to figure out a way where they can get these funds continually flowing into their country. And I don't believe at this point in time that the European countries have come to an understanding on what they're going to do for Iran monetarily. And we'll have to wait to see how that turns out. We see right now that there's a problem in Gaza like there's always been. And it looks like there was an agreement that was ironed out because a number of mediators intervened in the past hours. And there was an agreement that was reached to return to a ceasefire in Gaza. But Israel is not really abiding by this, and they're saying that they're going to be attacking if Hamas continually fires at Israel. Now, a lot of times these are false flags. A lot of times this is all set up so Israel can go in and move into these areas, because what we see happening right now is that the Syrian army is mounting a major offensive in the southern area, all along this area, and it looks like Israel's also ramping up, and there's going to be a huge amount of conflict in this area, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But before that, the Syrian army, they have discovered tunnels, armories, explosives in a former rebel bastion in South Damascus, and this is how the rebels and the terrorists got back and forth. And there's tunnels running all underground in this entire area under Damascus throughout the country. And this is how they move weapons back and forth and individuals back and forth to different areas. Now we see that the U.S. is protesting Syria in regards to the International Disarmament Conference. Now, this was formed in 1979. This is the Conference on Disarmament. It's a multilateral disarmament forum, and it establishes the international community, which rotates its presidency according to alphabetical order. So right now we're up to Syria, and this is why the deep state doesn't want this. This is why they're saying that Syria should not have a turn in running this. Now, of course, Syria is a sovereign country. Assad is an elected leader. And right now, there is no reason why Syria shouldn't head this up. I mean, the deep state, they're still sticking to the chemical weapons attack in Douma. They're still sticking to Assad, carries out torture on his own people. And they're continually still pushing this agenda. But you have to remember, the U.S. is widely known to have employed depleted uranium munitions in Iraq during the Iraqi War, which led to deaths of over 1 million Iraqis. And I don't think the U.S. right now has a leg to stand on. And they're pushing their agenda just like they always do, because their agenda is to remove Assad. I mean, they haven't given up on this, the deep state. Even though they're being pushed out of the situation, their plan still is to remove Assad and then have regime change in Iran. That's where they want to go with all this. And right now, it's kind of tough. Now, Washington is warning, and this is the deep state, warning the Syrian government from mounting this offensive. Now, remember, this is Syria. This is their land. The deep state invaded Syria along with the coalition forces. They weren't invited into the country. And the deep state is warning Syria not to take back their land, which is absolutely ridiculous. Lavrov right now, he is out there saying, listen, all foreign troops, all non-Syrian forces must withdraw from the de-escalation zone in southern Syria, which was established by the U.S., Russia, and Jordan in July of 2017. And he went on to say, as regards the confrontation between Israel and Iran in Syria, we have agreements on the southwestern de-escalation zone. These agreements have been reached between Russia, the United States, and Jordan. Israel was informed about them as we were working on them. The agreements stipulate that this de-escalation zone should consolidate stability, while all non-Syrian forces must be withdrawn from this area. And I think that this should happen as soon as possible, Lavrov. And this new agreement will allow the Syrian army to launch a large-scale military operation to recapture areas along the border with Jordan and the contact line with Israel. And I don't think Israel wants to go along with this. And what this means is that all foreign forces will have to leave. And no, it just doesn't mean Iran. It means all foreign forces. And this, I think, is the problem for Israel. And I think the agreement was made so all foreign forces can leave the area, where the troops from the U.S. can leave the area, which means the troops would be withdrawn. This was done on purpose, which means that Syria is taking back part of their country. They're going to control the borders. This has been the plan all along. Remember, plans do change. The deep state plan changes. The Patriots plan changes. It depends what obstacles there are. Right now, this was the plan. And they're continuing on with this plan to remove the forces from Syria. And if you notice, the call from Russia, from Syria, to have all foreign troops remove themselves from Syria, it's getting louder and louder, and they're mentioning it more often. And the reason why they're doing this is because they're leading up to a point where eventually Syria will take control of the entire country, and all troops must leave. And I believe this is why Putin mentioned that all troops, and he included Iran, Russia would stay. And eventually what's going to happen is Syria will say, Iran, you must leave, and all foreign troops must leave. And at this point, the coalition forces, they're really going to have to come up with some other type of scenario of why they need to stay. Otherwise, they're going to have to leave, and that's going to be very difficult. Will they try to come up with something? Will they try to create an event? Will they try? Maybe. But the point is at this point, the warnings have been out there. Syria and Russia have been asking. Soon it's going to go to the UN. And you know that Russia and China, they're going to back this up. Yes, the U.S. might veto it. Nikki Haley might come out and say, we're going to veto this. Maybe she'll be removed by that time. But they're going to have the vote. They're going to have the power. And I think what's going to happen is the coalition forces are going to be, if they're not going to leave on their own, they will be forced to leave. Now again, anything could happen. But right now, this is the plan. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.